work would be wasted, so we can never let our guard down. After countless processes and extreme tests, the 370,000 key components were developed. Together they form 누리호, ready for launch.
한 250명 되는 발사체 소속 연구원뿐만이 아니라 참여 기업 인원들이 같이 해서 10여 년 동안 고생했던 이 결과물이 어떻게 보면 이제 그 채점을 받는 날이잖아요. 더군다나 1차 때 마지막 단계에서 3단이 이제 문제가 돼서 실패를 했기 때문에.
On October 21, 2021, 누리호 soared into the sky, emitting a powerful burst of flame. While it succeeded in lifting off, the third stage engine shut down earlier than planned, leading to failure in achieving the satellite's intended orbit. But there was no time to dwell on disappointment. The research team immediately began analyzing over 2,600 flight data points. Just 8 months later, 누리호's second launch was a success. Since the launch vehicle was developed with our own technology, it was easier to pinpoint the cause of the problem. This was followed by the third launch, a practical mission. We achieved our dream of technological independence by launching our own satellite and rocket, made with our own hands.
아무것도 모르는 시점부터 그 우주 발사체를 개발하는 그 누리호 성공까지 오는 과정에서 어떻게 보면 반드시 겪을 수밖에 없었던 과정이 아니었나 뭐 그런 생각이 듭니다. 선진국들과 이렇게 대화도 하면서 뭐 실패나 아니면 그런 뭐 과정을 줄일 수도 있었지만 그런 과정들이 어떻게 보면 쌓이고 쌓여서 또 저희의 실력이 돼서 우주 발사체를 개발할 수 있었던 그 결과로 나타난 것 같습니다. 예.
누리호가 가지는 의미는 우리가 이제 우주로 어떤 뭐 우주선이든 위성이든 보낼 수 있는 능력을 갖게 됐다. 길게 그리고 크게 보자면 우리가 필요한 기술들을 우리 스스로 노력을 해서 얻어냈고 이제 이게 끝이 아니라 이제 시작이라는 거죠.
There is no greater blessing than to have good health as you grow old. Even though my mom is over 70, she is peppy and full of energy. One day, our family started practicing Taekwondo, and it turned out to be a special blessing for us. Taekwondo family, return to happiness.
옛날에는 택시부터 시작해가지고 버스, 덤프트럭, 낮과 밤이 없이 몸이 부서지도록 일을 했죠. 그러다 보니까 몸이 많이 망가졌어요. 허리 협착증도 생겼고 무릎도 아프고 이제는 내 삶이 다 됐는갑다 생각을 하고 사는 것도 싫고 완전 좌절을 했죠.
지팡이를 짚고 다니실 만큼 근력이 약해지셔가지고 너무 힘들었는데 우연찮게 실버 태권도라는 거를 알게 되셨어요.
다리도 안 올라갔거든요, 솔직히. 근데 64세부터 태권도를 해서 7년째 하고 있습니다.
인상도 너무 밝아지셨고 빨리 가고 싶다고 하시고 도복을 보면서 흐뭇해 하시더라고요. 그때부터 어머니의 삶이 다시 시작이 된 것 같고 지팡이를 안 짚기 시작하셨어요. 그게 진짜 놀라운 변화인 것 같습니다.
어르신들이 운동을 통해서 노년을 건강한 생활을 할 수 있게끔 도와주는 게 바로 저는 태권도라고 생각이 듭니다.
Not only did Mother experience this change, but her fellow teammates also felt reborn due to the dramatic change in their lives.
너무 좋아요. 온 세상을 다 얻은 것 같죠. 제가 태권도 전도사가 된 것 같아요.
열정이 높으신 분이죠. 그 가족 전체가 태권도 가족입니다. 아주 화목하고 건강이 넘치는 대한민국의 대표적인 태권도 가족이 아닌가 싶습니다.
We're a family that loves practicing Taekwondo, so we've embarked on a new challenge.
사실 저희 가족들이 아픔이 정말 많습니다. 제가 아침에 일어났는데 반신이 마비가 왔었고 저희 아이는 태어나자마자 인공 심박기를 달았었고 정상으로도 살기 힘들다는 진단을 받았었지만 이 아이를 보면서 기적이라는 것을 알게 됐거든요. 그래서 태권도는 행복 그 자체입니다.
태권도를 해서 강해지니까 더 자신감이 올라가고 행복해요.
I believe Taekwondo is a blessing from heaven. It has made us hopeful for the future. Every day, we're excited to see what's in store for us tomorrow. Practice it with your family. Taekwondo brings happiness.
Curious about Korean cultural heritage?
If you are a fan of Korean culture and history, listen up. Korean cultural heritage is based on a 5,000-year history.
The whole country is like a massive museum because it possesses such diverse cultural properties. Let's not wait any longer and take a look.
First, for beginners. For those who are not familiar with Korea, let's start with the world-famous list.
You can see how Korea's beautiful traditional patterns and historical features have been preserved.
And don't forget to experience Korea's intangible cultural heritage. From Gangangsule to Talchum, there's just so many exciting cultural heritages to experience.
These are for intermediate level tourists who have already visited Korea and its famous attractions. You might even be standing in a World Heritage Site right now.
How about searching for intangible cultural heritage that you can experience? 한소리, 제주 해녀 diving, 김장. Make some unforgettable memories while having fun.
Last but not least, the advanced level. It's the memory of the World Register. Korea possesses an extensive documentary heritage. Korea is serious about documentation and preservation.
A tour of Korean cultural heritage will become a legacy of your own.
Why not make your own Korean cultural heritage travel itinerary?
Isn't it fascinating?
The Constitutional Court says it'll deem the legal documents delivered to President Yoon for the impeachment trial as they remained unreceived. The first preparatory hearing will take place as scheduled on December 27th. And the president has apparently rejected the second summons request by a special investigation team over the martial law incident, which has demanded him to appear for questioning on December 25th. Amid the political turmoil, a high-level diplomat and a renowned businessman were in the U.S. over the weekend to manage the situation for the incoming Trump team. It's December 23rd, 8 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. The Constitutional Court says it'll deem its legal documents delivered to the president as his security team apparently continues to reject accepting the papers on his behalf. Oh Soo-young leads us off.
The Constitutional Court has decided to move ahead with impeachment trial proceedings for President Yoon as the leader has not accepted nor responded to court documents sent to him over the past week. On Monday, the court announced that it would consider December 19th as the date it sent official documents to Yoon's residence, adding the 7-day deadline for his response would have been effective from the 20th upon the deemed delivery. The court also plans to proceed as planned with the first preparatory hearing on Friday, to gather and review materials and arguments from Yoon and the National Assembly, which voted to remove him from office over his imposition of martial law. Around 7 documents were sent, including the notice of receipt, a request for Yoon's response, the impeachment resolution, as well as the notification, attendance request, and the order for preparation.
The effectiveness of delivery is established when the legal documents reach the designated place, as per Supreme Court Precedent 98-53. Therefore, the effectiveness remains valid even if the documents are not actually received.
After being suspended from his duties, the leader is believed to be remaining at his residence. However, he has so far turned away at least 11 attempts to deliver court papers. Guards at his residence have reportedly refused to take mail on Yoon's behalf, and his office returned the post, saying he was unavailable. This marks the first time in South Korea's constitutional history that a president facing impeachment has not accepted documents from court. In contrast, former President Roh Moo-hyun received impeachment papers the day after Parliament's vote in 2004, and former President Park Geun-hye received them on the same day of her impeachment in 2016.
While the court will continue with its proceedings as planned, it's unclear whether Yoon will respond within the 7-day deadline effective from the day of receiving documents. As of Monday, court officials say there has been no response from the president.
It's unlikely that Yoon himself would attend the first preparatory trial. Meanwhile, the National Assembly seems close to finalizing a legal team ahead of Friday's hearing. However, there are concerns the trial could face delays, deliberately or otherwise, if President Yoon's side fails to appoint legal representatives, refuses to attend, or claims more time is needed to review the documents. As of now, Yoon has not fully formed his legal team. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
The planned questioning of President Yoon this week remains unclear as his office reportedly refused to comply with the second summons request by the investigation team. The president's legal team says impeachment proceedings should come before investigations. Kim Jong-shi reports.
The Special Investigative Team, including police and the Corruption Investigation Office for High-Ranking Officials, or the CIO, revealed on Monday that Yoon's office continues to refuse to accept notices to appear for questioning. This follows earlier refusals of similar requests, casting doubts on whether the investigation can proceed. Notices sent to Yoon's office and residence have been either rejected or left unopened. The team had requested his appearance on Christmas Day to address allegations linking him to the orchestration of the December 3rd martial law crisis, where he's accused of leading efforts to seize authority, sparking concerns over legal defiance. Legal experts say this refusal to cooperate could have significant consequences.
The way he's refusing to take delivery of these notices refusing to attend either the prosecution or the CIO to answer questions and essentially refusing to cooperate with the investigation in and of itself can constitute grounds for impeachment.
Adding to the tension, investigators are analyzing Yoon's personal phone records separate from his secure government line. Investigators are also looking into 7 figures, including former Defense Intelligence Command Chief No Sang-won and current Chief Moon Sang-ho, over so-called hamburger meetings, covert gatherings at a fast food restaurant where they allegedly discussed the details of martial law. A notebook seized from No apparently outlines troop deployments and plans to provoke a North Korean attack near the northern limit line, intensifying suspicions of his leading martial law efforts despite his civilian status. Meanwhile, Yoon's legal team argues that impeachment should take precedence over criminal investigations, citing former President Park Geun-hye's case. Critics, however, question whether this stance is a deliberate attempt to avoid accountability as a sitting president with suspended powers. 김정실, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, as lawmakers across the aisle and the government agree to launch a joint consultative body, their first meeting will take place on Thursday to discuss how to manage current state affairs. Our correspondent Lee Si-hoo has this report.
After more than a week of back and forth, the ruling People Power Party and the main opposition Democratic Party agreed Monday to launch a joint consultative body between rival parties and the government to discuss current state affairs and measures to improve people's livelihoods. PPP's acting chairman and floor leader Kwon Sang-dong and the DP's floor leader Park Chan-dae, in their talks presided over by National Assembly Speaker Woo Won-sik, decided to hold the first meeting this Thursday on the 26th. For the time being, the two are fine-tuning details on the specifics of the joint talk, narrowing down its agendas and goals. Meanwhile, a further push on Monday from the opposition lawmakers to facilitate the impeachment process against President Yoon Suk-yeol. The Parliament's Special Committee on the Nomination of Constitutional Justices held hearings on 2 nominees, Ma Eun-hyuk and Jung Kae-sun, as recommended by the opposition blocs to join the Constitutional Court of Korea. This is an effort mainly by the DP and the rest of the opposition to fill the 3 empty seats at what is supposed to be a 9-member bench, which will make the final decision on Yoon's impeachment. But the ruling party continues to argue that the nominees, even if confirmed for nomination by the National Assembly, cannot be appointed by an acting president who does not hold the same authority. It also says the 2 nominees are politically biased and inappropriate to hold the seats, urging the DP to take back their suggestions. The PPP members refused to take part during Monday's hearings. They say if the Parliament's nominations do go through, they will go as far as to challenge the nomination by filing an official jurisdiction of the dispute to the court. By law, 3 constitutional justices are selected by the National Assembly and appointed by the President. Both nominees during the hearings vowed they will safeguard the constitutional order and secure the fundamental rights of the people. The opposition plans to hold one more hearing on Tuesday to question the 3rd nominee, Jo Han-chang, recommended by the ruling party, and get all 3 nominations approved by the whole assembly at a plenary session as early as this Thursday. The rival parties agreed to hold 2 more plenary sessions by the end of the year on the 26th and 31st.
But the DP unilaterally approved 2 additional meetings before and after the dates and 2 more in January to review bills and question the government, while the PPP says doing so is unnecessary and it is ultimately up to the Assembly Speaker to decide on the schedule. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
First, Vice Foreign Minister Kim Hong-kyun is in Washington to meet with his American counterpart Kurt Campbell as the country focuses on strengthening relations with the United States following the short-lived declaration of martial law. And as the country gets ready for Trump's second term, South Korea's Shinsegae Group chairman says he briefly met with the U.S. president-elect. Our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Eun-ji has the details.
As South Korea prepares for Trump's second presidency, First Vice Foreign Minister Kim Hong-kyun is on a visit to the United States for talks with the outgoing Biden administration. His trip appears to be part of South Korea's efforts to put relations with the United States back on track, amid political turmoil following the brief imposition of martial law earlier this month. Speaking to reporters at Dulles International Airport in Washington, D.C. on Sunday, he said the Korean government has been communicating with the Trump team and added that they've already explained the current domestic situation, including the imposition of martial law and the impeachment proceedings against President Yoon. When asked how Trump's team perceives the situation in South Korea, Kim said they're likely to have understood the situation.
As the whole world has witnessed, South Korea's democracy has shown how resilient it is. So I'm sure they've clearly understood the situation.
But Kim added that there are no plans to meet anyone from the Trump side during his visit. He's set to meet with U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Kurt Campbell on Monday local time, where they will likely discuss whether or not to hold a meeting between their foreign ministers before the end of Biden administration. Separately, South Korean retail conglomerate Shinsegae Group chairman Chung Yong-jin said Saturday that he had a brief talk with U.S. President-elect Donald Trump for around 10 to 15 minutes. While Chung refrained from further disclosing details about his talk, he explained that Trump's team showed interest in the current situation in South Korea.
Korea is a country with potential, so please trust and wait. We will quickly return to normal. That's all I said.
His brief meeting with the U.S. president-elect came as he stayed at Mar-a-Lago Resort at the invitation of Donald Trump Jr. Chung is the first South Korean known to have met Trump since his election win in November. Bae Eun-ji, Arirang News.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has reaffirmed intentions to put a quick end to Russia's war against Ukraine, adding that Vladimir Putin has voiced interest in a meeting in the near future. Bae Eun-ji has more.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump said on Sunday that Russian President Vladimir Putin has expressed interest in meeting with him as soon as possible, and added that the horrible war needed to end. This was during his speech at America Fest, a political festival for conservatives put on by conservative nonprofit Turning Point. It was his first rally-style speech since winning the election. Touting his transition efforts at the event, Trump also reiterated that had he been in power, the war in Ukraine would not have happened. During his election campaign, Trump had claimed he could resolve the war in just one day. And recently, the president-elect has also stated that upon taking office, Ukraine would possibly receive less military aid from the U.S. During his annual end-of-year press conference on Thursday, Putin had expressed his readiness to meet with Trump. And in an interview with Russian journalists on Sunday, when asked about the possibility of improving relations with the United States, Putin said everything can be done if there is a desire, adding that Russia had never lost that desire. But Putin emphasized that while Russia is ready to find compromises, it would not be to the detriment of the interests of the Russian state, which he said holds true for all relations with foreign countries. Meanwhile, Putin hosted a meeting with Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico on Sunday, who arrived in Moscow on a surprise working visit. The one-on-one meeting focused on the international situation of the Ukraine war, as well as supplies of Russian gas to Slovakia. Fico has been a vocal critic against the European Union's support for Kiev in the war. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stated at a summit in Brussels last week that he had no intention of renewing a deal allowing for Russian gas to transit to Slovakia through Ukraine. The 5-year agreement signed before the war is due to expire at the end of this year. Bae Eun-ji, Arirang News.
A third homegrown South Korean spy satellite has been placed into orbit from a U.S. space center this past weekend. This means the country's surveillance capabilities on North Korea are ramped up. Choi Min-jung reports.
4, 3, 2, 1, ignition.
The country's third military reconnaissance satellite was successfully lifted into space on Saturday night, Korea time. A SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket carrying the domestically developed satellite was launched from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. The satellite succeeded in communicating with the ground station shortly after entering orbit.
The third reconnaissance satellite successfully communicated with the domestic ground station, confirming that the satellite was in good working order.
The launch follows 2 successful liftoffs in December 2023 and a second one in April this year. The latest launch is part of South Korea's plan to deploy 5 spy satellites by 2025 to monitor the North with its homegrown satellite network. Once all 5 satellites have been placed in orbit, the military will be able to monitor a specific North Korean target every 2 hours.
We will be able to monitor North Korea dozens of times a day when the military's 4th and 5th reconnaissance satellites and microsatellite systems are launched in the future.
The satellites are capable of capturing images day and night, regardless of weather. The third satellite will go through operational testing over the next few months before carrying out surveillance and reconnaissance missions. Meanwhile, North Korea had announced that it would launch 3 reconnaissance satellites this year, but the South's military assessed that seems unlikely based on the current trends. The regime attempted to launch its second reconnaissance satellite back in May, but failed. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Semiconductor shipments have been driving up exports this month. According to the Korea Customs Service on Monday, chip exports amounted to $40.3 billion during the first 20 days of December, up 6.8% on year. Overseas shipments of semiconductors alone rose 23%. Korea's exports have been expanding for the 14th month in a row up until November, but the rate of rise has been slowing since August. It has been an eventful year in sports. And for a wrap-up of the main sporting events of 2024, we're joined in the studio by our sports editor, Paul Need. Hi, Paul.
Hello there.
So, sports-wise, 2024 began in earnest with the AFC Asian Cup in January.
Yes, and South Korea were among the favourites to win the competition. They reached the semi-finals, but fans were unhappy with the team's performances. The squad was seen as a golden generation with the likes of Son Heung-min, Kim Min-jae, Lee Gang-in and Hwang Hee-chan, among others, playing in Europe. But perceived lacklustre performances and a lack of tactics throughout the tournament meant that manager Jürgen Klinsmann was under fire. The KFA then parted company with him and began searching for a replacement. Hwang Sun-hong oversaw the qualifying games in March and Kim Do-hoon the ones in June. Eventually, Ulsan HD boss Hong Myung-bo was appointed, but not without controversy. Fans saw the process as lacking transparency, and this has remained a sensitive issue. So much so that the KFA chairman Chung Mong-gyu faces competition in the upcoming election.
A key member of that team is, of course, Captain Son Heung-min. What has been a year for him?
Yes, it's been eventful. He's further cemented himself as a Tottenham legend. Earlier this year, he became just the 14th player in the club's history to make 400 appearances. He also made his 300th appearance in the Premier League and moved into 5th in Tottenham's all-time goal-scoring charts. Also, he moved into the Premier League's top 20 goal scorers of all time. And just recently, Son broke Tottenham's Premier League assist record with his 68th. He'll also be joined by teen sensation Yang Min-hyuk, whose move to Spurs from Gangwon FC was announced when Tottenham came over to Korea to play the Kupang Play Series in July. Meanwhile, in May of this year, midfielder Hwang In-bom became only the second South Korean since Park Ji-sung to win a European League title. He won the Serbian Superliga and the Serbian Cup with Crvena Zvezda, also known as Red Star Belgrade. Hwang has since joined Dutch giants Feyenoord.
In the summer, we had Olympics, the Olympics and Paralympics, and Team Korea returned from Paris with plenty of medals.
Yes, equaling its own record for gold medals in the Olympics. 32 medals overall, 13 gold, 9 silver and 10 bronze to finish in 8th. The archery team claimed all 5 gold medals available for the very first time. For the women's team, it was their 10th consecutive Olympic title. Kim Woo-jin became the country's first male archer to win 3 gold medals in a single Olympics and set a record with 5 golds in his career, the most by any Olympian from this country. In shooting, Team Korea secured 3 gold and 3 silver, surpassing their previous best. In fencing, the men's sabre team, led by Oh Sang-uk, achieved a three-peat in the team event, while Oh also won the individual gold. Other highlights include 2 gold and 1 bronze in taekwondo after missing out in Tokyo. And a 12-year wait was ended in table tennis with 2 bronze, and also An Se-young won gold in badminton.
And finally, to Korea's domestic football and baseball leagues. It was a record-breaking year for attendances.
Yes, you're right. The K-League achieved 3 million paid fans for the 2nd year in a row, but did so 3 rounds faster than last year. This is the 2nd time since only paid spectators were counted in the official attendances. Back in March as well, FC Seoul set a new paid attendance record of 51,670 when fans flocked to see Jesse Lingard's home debut against Incheon United. Meanwhile, the KBO had over 10 million fans through the turnstiles this year, setting a new record. Also a new record is a league average of 15,000, and 9 of the 10 teams broke their own records, and that was for the first time. And also there were over 100 sellouts.
All right, thanks for that. See you next time, Paul.
Thank you.
Seoul will start the morning at -6 degrees Celsius tomorrow, which will continue the colder than usual temperatures. However, temperatures are expected to be similar to or slightly higher than the average temperatures on Christmas Day. Cold wave advisories are currently in place in northeastern parts of Gyeonggi-do Province, western parts of Gangwon-do Province, northern parts of Chungcheongbuk-do Province, and northern parts of Gyeongsang-buk-do Province. In addition, cold wave warnings are issued in Yeoncheon in Gyeonggi-do Province and Cheollon and Yanggu in Gangwon-do Province. This cold wave will ease off a bit on Christmas Day, but will be severe again on Friday. Tomorrow, Christmas Eve will start off at below 0 degrees in most parts of the country. Chuncheon -12 degrees, Daejeon -5 degrees. Highs will move up to 3 degrees in Seoul, Daegu and Gyeongju 8 degrees. It will be difficult to expect a white Christmas this year since there's no news of snow on Wednesday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. panel session up next.
AI, what are some dishes you should try in Korea?
Recommended food to eat in Korea are Korean barbecue, fried chicken, kimchi, kimbap, 국밥.
에이, 이걸로는 부족하지. 진짜 한국에선 어떻게 먹는지 알려줄까?
K-바비큐? 신김치랑 먹어야지.
치킨? 클래식한 치킨부터 한강뷰 치킨까지. 치맥 페스티벌은 처음이지?
김치? 종류만큼 먹는 법도 가지각색.
김밥? 시장에선 이렇게, 산에선 이렇게, 바다에선 이렇게.
국밥? 취향 따라, 입맛 따라. 마무리까지 완벽하게.
이런 한국, 와보지 않고는 모를걸? 요즘 한국에선 어떻게 노는지 알려줄까?
한국에선 아이돌이 되어볼 수도, 인생 번호를 찾을 수도 있지. 제일 핫한 포토 스팟은 여기. 한국은 분명 너에게 새로운 영감을 줄 거야.
이런 한국, 와보지 않고는 모를걸? 진짜 한국에선 어떻게 먹는지 알려줄까?
K-바비큐? 신김치랑 먹어야지.
치킨? 치맥 페스티벌은 처음이지?
김치? 종류만큼 먹는 법도 가지각색.
김밥?
시장에선, 산에선, 바다에선 이렇게.
국밥? 취향 따라, 입맛 따라. 이런 한국, 와보지 않고는 모를걸?
Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring today's most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mo-gyan. Concerns mount over potential delays in the impeachment trial of President Yoon Suk-yeol as he once again refused to accept impeachment-related documents sent by the Constitutional Court. Some observers believe Yoon's refusal is a deliberate tactic to delay the proceedings, while others worry it could lead to further legal hurdles. Yoon's attorney denied the criticism, saying that they need time to prepare to faithfully proceed. Now, despite the situation, the Constitutional Court said Monday it will hold the first preparatory hearing on the impeachment trial this Friday as planned. Now, Yoon will be considered to have been served the necessary documents related to his trial, regardless of whether he received them, as they were delivered by the Postal Service last Friday. For a deeper discussion on this, we invite Jung Hwang, Chief Executive Officer at LawQuant LLC. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
And also joining us is Lee Hee-eun, Dean and Professor of Law at Handong International Law School. Great to have you.
It's great to be here.
So let's start with Professor Lee. So since December 16th, President Yoon Suk-yeol's side has been refusing to receive impeachment-related documents. In response, the Constitutional Court has decided to use the deemed service method. Could you explain for us what exactly is deemed service and what is its legal effect?
Well, first of all, let's talk about service generally. The idea of service is the point of the court, whenever it sends documentation to any of the parties involved in the litigation or some adjudication, the court needs to send those documents officially to make sure that the parties receive them. So this is where the term service comes from, that you're served with papers from the court. And in this case, when it comes to service, there are three basic ways you can receive service if you're a party to an adjudication. One is by postal mail, another is by hand delivery, and lastly, maybe the more controversial one is electronic delivery, let's say by email. But in this case, as you noted here, there were two efforts made to give service to the president, and this was first by hand delivery, and another was by postal delivery. Now, as we've all seen in the last couple of days, the Presidential Security Services did not receive the mail or the hand delivery because they didn't want to be in between the court and the president. But because the court had sent them by mail, there is a customary or procedure, or in this case, a rule that once the postal mail has been sent to a person who's in an adjudication, once it's been delivered, it's deemed to be served. So in this case, even though he actually may not have actually received it in his hands, the fact that it reached his address, his official residence, means that the court determines that he has received the papers and has a notification of the adjudication so that now it can go forward with respect to due process, that his rights have been protected and therefore he's on notice.
Mm-hmm. Now, then the Joint Investigation Headquarters has notified President Yoon to appear on the 25th. Now, this time regarding the insurrection allegations, but this is reported that Yoon has refused to accept the second summons notice as well. Can this be interpreted as a refusal to comply with the second summons? And there's also criticism that this is a blatant strategy to delay the proceedings. What's your perspective on this, Mr. Hwang?
Well, I mean, we can go into all the legal technicalities and bore our viewers to death, I fear. But in the end, I think what is happening is that for whatever reason, President Yoon and his lawyers are willing to engage in these really technical legal battles, which to me doesn't seem all that beneficial to their case. I mean, there are basically two ways to deal with the impeachment trial is sort of like a criminal proceeding in the sense that it's punitive in nature, which is why they're actually using criminal procedure, not civil procedure in impeachment proceedings. And one way is you fight tooth and nail, and in the end, you actually risk kind of angering the court and receiving the maximum sentence in this case, impeachment and removal, or you can really admit that you're wrong and really throw yourself at the court's mercy. Obviously, President Yoon and his lawyers have decided to take a very confrontational approach, and I'm kind of sort of wondering why they're doing it. I'm wondering if they're sort of in a state of denial.
Mm-hmm. So if President Yoon continues to refuse to appear again, the Corruption Investigation Office say they might seek an arrest warrant, but Yoon's lawyer says no investigative bodies can oblige the president to appear before them. Professor Lee, what is the likelihood of an arrest warrant being executed against a sitting president, and what are the conditions for executing an arrest warrant?
Well, this is very all unprecedented. So we're wading into territory that has really never been gone through before. And so this is all speculation because there's going to be a huge fight if an arrest warrant is actually issued by a court. And this will cause, in some sense, a potential constitutional crisis. Insofar as you have the executive branch and then potentially the judiciary facing off against each other with respect to whether the judiciary can force a sitting president, although, of course, he's been impeached, to still appear before prosecutors, in this case, the CIO, the Corruption Investigation Office, to be subject to questioning. So I think the answer lies in this process by which one can get an arrest warrant, right? So first, there are two ways you can do this. One is you can certainly go to the court, and a judge will issue a warrant for an arrest. So that essentially means that the president must be and would forcibly be forced to come before the prosecutors to hear questioning. Or there's an urgent arrest, which is not subject to a judge's approval, but if someone is potentially accused of a crime, in this case, insurrection or something of that nature, which is subject to high penalties, and there's a risk of some sort of destruction of evidence, so on and so forth, that the prosecutors, in this case the CIO, could seek an arrest warrant on their own. But because this is not something which has ever been done before, I think both sides are treading very carefully on as to, in this case, the prosecutors, whether or not they'll pursue an arrest warrant. And if they do get one from a judge, the question then becomes, will they be able to force their way into the presidential, office, or in this case, his residence, the official residence. So some deal would have to be worked out with the security services to allow for the president to then be removed from his residence. So this is going to require, even if an arrest warrant is issued by a court, this is going to require a lot of negotiation between the presidential office and the prosecutors in order to make this questioning happen. Another possibility is that the questioning happens at his residence, which is not common, which would be common for this thing to happen. So I think a lot of questions need to be answered, of course, as this goes through. But will an arrest warrant be issued? It may be likely if he continues to pursue this kind of obfuscation of respect to these questions.
Right, so indeed it's a very unprecedented situation right now. Just earlier today, Yoon's lawyer stressed that President Yoon Suk-yeol prioritizes his impeachment trial over the ongoing investigations into the brief martial law imposition. Mr. Hwang, why are they putting priority on the impeachment over treason charges?
Apparently, at least if you take presidential's legal advisor, because the lawyer has not been chosen as actual lawyer to represent President Yoon, but is sort of providing advice on the side. So exactly what his role is, that in itself is unclear. But if we take his words seriously as kind of a true expression of what President Yoon is thinking, President Yoon apparently thinks that he can convince the Constitutional Court that martial law declaration was lawful and constitutional. Now, that goes counter to, I would say, supermajority of lawyers and legal scholars who are looking at this issue, but apparently that's the legal strategy that President Yoon feels strongly about, and I guess that's what his lawyers feel. And if indeed the Constitutional Court reinstates President Yoon, I suppose the prosecutors will also drop their cases.
Right. So he's planning to convince them, and that comes first.
Yes.
All right. Now, meanwhile, despite backlash from the opposition party, acting President Han Duck-soo has been delaying the enforcement of special prosecutor bill for Yoon's insurrection case. What kind of impact might this have on the schedule for forced investigations against President Yoon, Mr. Hwang?
Well, in order to form, even if the bill passes, assuming the Prime Minister Han doesn't veto the bill, it actually takes at least a month to form a proper special prosecutor team. And I think by then we'll have the Constitutional Court case well on its way. Well, the practical effect of having a special prosecutor is that right now we have three bodies all sort of vying and competing with each other and sort of looking at over each other's shoulders about who's going to do what. Special prosecutor is just going to say, we are going to do it. All of you are just going to stand down. Order can be achieved, but at the same time, which means that until the special prosecutors are, up and running, things will be delayed. So I think naturally, I think we'll have the constitutional proceeding first, and then special prosecutors doing their investigation going forward, which is basically what happened with President Park Geun-hye's impeachment and subsequent prosecution as well.
Then starting today, the confirmation hearings for 3 Constitutional Court justice nominees are taking place beginning today. Now, this is a crucial stage for Yoon's impeachment case. And even if the 3 nominees pass the hearings, an appointment by acting President Han Duck-soo is deemed necessary. Why has the controversy over the appointment power been growing, Professor Lee?
Well, because the Prime Minister is acting president, and the question is, can an acting president fulfill the same roles exactly as the president would if he had not been impeached? So the issue really raises the question as to whether the Prime Minister, in his capacity as acting president, can make these appointments official. In a previous situation, and this is the precedent case involving, Hwang Kyo-hwan, who was the Prime Minister at the time when President Park Geun-hye was impeached, he refused to appoint anyone above the level of vice minister. So in any ministerial level position, or in this case, with respect to the courts, there was a hesitancy in terms of his part to make these appointments. However, eventually appointments were made by Prime Minister Han in that case. So the issue here is, can the Prime Minister in this situation, can he appoint? Now, technically he can, because as acting president, he assumes all the same powers as the president if in this situation he's unable to perform his duties. So I think the PPP here, the ruling party, I think trying to delay, as far as procedure is concerned, to call into question the Prime Minister's authority to make such an appointment. Now, the Prime Minister in this case, as acting president, could necessarily refuse to appoint these Constitutional Court justices. That would be his right under the Constitution because he's acting president. But if that's the case, then we've heard calls from the National Assembly. This is the majority party, the Democratic Party, will call for his impeachment if he refuses to do so. So there's a lot of back and forth here between the parties, and this question about the Prime Minister's role in office as to whether he can make these appointments. So this is, I think, another question that is raised in this impeachment. And again, the issue of the role of the acting president comes into question because this is such a high stakes litigation, what's happening at the Constitutional Court. Everyone sees the need to have a full bench, 9 justices. But again, we have this issue here with the Prime Minister now being in his authority and whether or not he can exercise that free of any political influence.
And on December 27th, the first preparatory hearing for President Yoon's impeachment trial is scheduled at the Constitutional Court. What is a preparatory hearing for starters, and what discussions typically take place during such a session, Professor Lee?
Well, the preparatory meeting is basically a meeting for the justices to gather with the person who's subject to impeachment in this case, President Yoon, assuming he has lawyers that he's appointed, that they would they wouldn't have to appear at this hearing, but the idea would be the justices themselves would set forth sort of a timetable. They would also set forth sort of the schedule, as well as, put together the preliminary issues that would be addressed in the context of an impeachment trial. So it's really a trial preparation date, basically, before you have the full-blown trial. As you can imagine, because this is again, a very complicated, potentially complicated case with evidence that needs to be heard, maybe witnesses to be called, documentary evidence to be presented. This trial could take quite some time to work itself through. So the preparatory date of the 27th is really an opportunity for the court to sort of lay out everything sort of in front of them and lay out the issues and what may be presented before the court, and set out a sort of a timeline so that the proceedings could be held in an orderly and a time-sensitive way. Because as we know, once an adjudication occurs at the court, there's 180 days sort of time deadline before the court, by when the court has to make a decision on the impeachment. So this is really an opportunity for the court to set the stage for the schedule and make sure that the proceedings are put forward in an orderly and timely fashion.
Then is it mandatory for President Yoon to also make presence in this preparatory hearing?
No, he's not required to attend. So, and there's no indication that he would. But the idea here is that he's given an opportunity through his counsel, or he himself may show up. But there's no requirement for him to attend for this to proceed.
All right. Now, the Constitutional Court has reiterated that it will prioritize the impeachment case against President Yoon. What will be the key issues and variables in the upcoming impeachment trial, Mr. Hwang?
I mean, President Yoon and his legal team, at least based on their public statements, appear to think that they can manage to convince the court. Whether they're actually convinced that they can do this is a little unclear to me, but at least if I take their words on the face value, they seem to think that what President Yoon has done on December 3rd was perfectly within the powers that Korean president has. I I'll just like to sort of think about the common sense of Korean general population, as well as the supermajority of the Korean legal community. And I think most of us will actually find it very hard to believe. I mean, part of, you don't actually have to find President Yoon has committed insurrection right now. I mean, that's something that the prosecutors have to do. All that the Constitutional Court has to do is, was there a serious violation of either the Constitution or some Korean law? And I think we just have, kind of sufficient video evidence of what happened December 3rd. And after all, the martial law declaration caught, I would say, absolute majority of Korean people by surprise. And to actually argue that that is just business as usual, that a Korean president can do, I think President Yoon and his legal team has a very difficult, if not impossible task. I have a feeling that if the Constitutional Court is willing, they can decide this case very quickly.
So it will be a very tough case for President Yoon's legal team side. Now, meanwhile, the ruling and opposition parties have agreed to launch a government rival party consultative group to discuss national governance issues, of course, with the vacancy. There are concerns that many challenges lie ahead in the process of forming and operating that body. What will be the key issues in this establishment and operation, Professor Lee?
Well, the business of governing has to continue despite the impeachment, and so it's a good effort by, I think, both sides to try to come to the table, along with in concert with the Prime Minister, to do the business of the legal system as well as the government offices that they're pledged to perform. And so there are a number of bills that need to be passed. There's legislation that needs to serve the Korean public that needs to be addressed. A number of things that have been stalled because of the whole impeachment process itself. So the idea that both parties would come together and along with the Prime Minister to sort of make the functions of government smooth despite this very chaotic event of the impeachment and what happened is commendable. But I think, because we're talking about politics here, naturally each side is going to try to carve out its own interests and to make sure that their interests are protected, but also the projection to the public is that they're taking the best interests of the public in mind. Now, naturally, any politician needs to be concerned about elections. And both parties here certainly are concerned with the public image that they're presenting when it comes to what is being dealt with. So what you're seeing here in the formation of this body is each side is trying to one-up each other with respect to taking the initiative to show the public that they are doing the business of government, but also taking the public's concerns in mind. So, I mean, there are a number of kinds of issues here, not to mention not only the laws themselves that are being sort of thought through, things that relate to agriculture, related to radioactive waste management. I mean, a lot of sensitive issues that are going to affect the Korean public, but also the appointment of ministers, because with respect to ministerial positions that are now vacant, you have to have a minister in charge to make sure that the ministry can move forward with the work that needs to be done. Without the minister in charge signing off on big projects or big initiatives, things are going to get stalled within the bureaucratic framework. And so here, with respect to this consultative body, the idea is that they could potentially work together, but because of the whole impeachment process itself, it doesn't seem like there's going to be much agreement here, and I fear that there's going to be a lot of just not concern for the public at large, but basically each side wanting to sort of portray to the public that they are the best party to rule the country in the event of a new election. And so I think that's what's happening here is positioning and posturing, but unfortunately, hopefully we can see maybe something good comes out of this with respect to actually laws being passed and the government functioning sort of close to normal as you can, despite these very difficult circumstances.
Right, so let's hope for the committee to help run the country better in this political turmoil with less political wrangling, of course. I'm afraid we'll have to leave our discussion right here. Many thanks to Professor Lee and Mr. Hwang for your insights tonight. We appreciate it.
It was my pleasure.
Now, that'll be all from us on Within the Frame. Be sure to tune in next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Until then, stay informed and engaged.
요즘 한국에선 어떻게 노는지 알려줄까?
한국에선 아이돌이 되어볼 수도 인생 번호를 찾을 수도 있지.
제일 핫한 포토 스팟은 여기.
한국은 분명 너에게 새로운 영감을 줄 거야.